Hey everyone, welcome back to my Punisher comic book collection videos. So now I'm at part 3 and we're picking up where I left off last time. So the last series that came before this one was the Punisher War Journal Volume 2, which ended in 2009, and then Punisher was immediately relaunched with this new ongoing Punisher series, which also coincided with the Dark Reign crossover. So basically Frank wanted to murder Norman Osborn, so Norman Osborn sends some of his Dark Avengers after the Punisher. So as you can see, issue 1, nice little homage cover to Amazing Spider-Man 129, the first appearance of the Punisher. There's also an equally distributed variant of this with Norman Osborn instead of the Sentry. Then we have the second printing from issue 1, and this all was written by Remender, and in my opinion this was a really nice run. I really liked the whole era, or the whole Dark Reign era. For me, Marvel at that point was pretty exciting, and it changed afterwards. So issue number 2, another nice homage cover. This time it's a throwback to the first Punisher miniseries, issue number 3. So here we have Punisher doing target practice on Dr. Doom and Punisher doing target practice on the Green Goblin on the variant edition. Then we've got the second printing variant. Then comes issue number 3 with a throwback cover to the first Garth Ennis series, and it's really nice Tim Bradstreet cover. Again, this came in 2 versions. Then comes number 4 with a throwback to the first ongoing Punisher series number 1. Again in 2 versions, one aiming at the Hood and one aiming at Norman Osborn. Then we have issue number 5, which is a throwback to another Amazing Spider-Man Punisher cover. I don't know the exact issue number right now. So here we have him going up against the Hood and then against the Green Goblin. Then we have issue number 6, where he goes up against the Serpent Society. Issue number 7, another return of Jigsaw. Issue number 8, with a nice Avengers cover. Also the, I think, 70th anniversary cover. Nice Steve Dillon artwork. I think this was an incentive, 1 in 10. And there's also another incentive variant, which basically announces the biggest mistake they ever did with Punisher, but we'll get to that in a moment. Then we have issue number 9, again an incentive cover. Then we have issue number 10, Punisher vs. the Hood, and the variant cover, where you can already see which way this is going to go. Then we had one annual, which I believe came out in 2010. Jason Pearson cover, and I think also artwork, where he goes up against Spider-Man. There's also an incentive variant for this. And then we get to the Dark Reign The List Punisher one-shot, where Daken as Dark Wolverine basically kills the Punisher. And then we get what is probably the worst storyline in Punisher history, and that's Franken-Castle. I decided to split these up, although this still counts for the ongoing series. So at this point I was still hoping this would only be a storyline. So here's issue number 11, the first part of the Franken-Castle storyline. The second printing with Tony Moore artwork, who also did the interiors. And that's basically also one of my biggest gripes with this. Not only was the story not very good, but I'm also not a big fan of Tony Moore's artwork. So, because if you can compare this to the other worst Punisher storyline, which did a similar thing, which was the angelic Punisher thing I talked about in the previous video, at least that had really good artwork. But yeah, I mean, we have a few issues with Dan Brereton. Brereton is obviously a great artist, but it's only this one issue. Then we have, I mean, this is a nice cover, Punisher going up against some Nazi zombies, but yeah, the whole Franken-Castle thing was just terrible. It felt more like a storyline that would fit a character like Deadpool, because from a rather serious series, they tried to go the funny route, which was really bad. And then with issue 7, the title actually changed to officially Franken-Castle, but it didn't last very long. So I'm missing number 18, which is, yeah, at that point I didn't care anymore. I haven't cared to pick up the missing issue until this point, because then we already were at the point where they remedied it. So we have a rematch between Punisher and Daken. Nice Simone Bianchi covers, by the way. And then we have already the final issue of Franken-Castle with a nice Dan Brereton cover. Luckily it's not Franken-Castle on the cover, but the regular Punisher, so I really like this cover. And then we come to the In the Blood miniseries, which basically was the return to the status quo for Punisher. Still written by Rick Remender. I mean, his writing was pretty good, but I'm not sure if the idea to change the series to Franken-Castle was his idea, because I've heard that it was more an editorial choice, and as we all know, Marvel editorial has been garbage, I think, since the 80s or something like that. So after this series had concluded with the In the Blood series, we did get a new Punisher #1, which came out, I believe, in 2010, and this time it was written by Greg Rucka, with most of the art done by Marco Cecchetto. So here's the cover to issue #1. I did also buy the John Romita signed version from Dynamic Forces, limited to 399 copies. Then we have issue #2, issue #3. And this wasn't a bad run, although I've just recently reread it and I remembered it to be better, because it's a weird one. And yeah, before we get into that, here's I think this was the 80th anniversary incentive cover. So it's a throwback to New Mutants 87, the first appearance of Cable. And this is actually a 1 in 50 incentive cover, so pretty hard to find. So that's really nice. And yeah, the thing is, in this series, basically Punisher gets a sidekick in form of a female war veteran who basically gets the same treatment as the Punisher. Her family gets killed by criminals, and so she teams up with the Punisher, and yeah, she basically becomes his sidekick, which is something for me that doesn't work with the Punisher. And yeah, at issue 10 we had a little crossover called the Omega Effect, which went through, I think, Avenging Spider-Man and the then ongoing Daredevil series. By the way, a very terrible crossover with one of the dumbest premises ever. So Daredevil has obtained a thing called the Omega Drive, which contains all of the information for basically every villain in the Marvel Universe, and yeah, he wants to destroy it and teams up with Punisher and Spider-Man. It's just pretty stupid. I hated it. So yeah, and overall the series is okay. I just thought it was better, or it was better in my memory. And yeah, the sidekick thing just doesn't fit the Punisher, in my opinion. but still not a bad read. And this lasted until issue 16. And after this one, we did get a small miniseries to basically wrap this run up. So we have the Punisher Warzone miniseries, which was, I believe, Warzone Volume 3. And in this one, he goes up against the New Avengers. The New Avengers decide that he needs to be stopped, and it's a pretty fun one. Probably the best storyline from Greg Rucka's run. And yeah, he basically tricks everyone and then at the end decides to give up and then gets incarcerated. I think he gets freed up in another series. I'm not exactly sure. So after this was done, we had a little hiatus for the Punisher for, I think, 1.5 years, and then there was a new #1 relaunch, this time with Nathan Edmondson writing the story and Mitch Gerads doing the most of the artwork. So here we have the #1, the sketch cover for #1, the Scotty Young Baby Punisher variant for #1, the Chris Samney Animal variant for #1, issue #2, issue #3, the incentive, I think the 1 in 10 incentive for issue #3, issue #4, 5, 6, and I actually don't know how good this series was. I have to reread it at some point because I don't have any true memories to this series, but it wasn't bad as far as I can tell. Issue #10, 11, the SK Energy Custom Edition variant, really weird one, hard to find, but yeah, did get it at some point. Issue #12, issue #13, 14, 15, issue #17, where he goes up against Sam Wilson as Captain America, #18, #19, and the final issue, #20. So after the 2014 series wrapped up, Punisher did get another relaunch in 2016, this time with Becky Cloonan as a writer and Steve Dillon as the main artist. So here's the Declan Shelby regular cover for #1, the Horseman of the Apocalypse variant cover, the action figure variant cover, and what's probably my favorite variant cover for Punisher of all time, and that's the Tim Bradstreet Hip Hop variant cover. And the reason why I love this cover so much is the fact that it's actually modeled after an album that I really like, and that's LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out. This was basically for me one of the first albums I ever bought myself when I discovered hip hop and found an interest as a teenager, basically. So that has a very special place in my heart. Then there's the issue 2. Here's the second printing and also the first printing. The only difference is that the second printing is a little bit lighter than the first printing. And we have issue #3, issue #4, the 50th anniversary Black Panther Punisher variant cover. That sounded weird. Issue #5, #6, #7, #8. And sadly, while this series was still going on, Steve Dillon passed away, so they changed the artist on the series, and certainly not for the better, but definitely for the worse, because then I can't even, not sure how the artist is named, Horak, but he's not very good. Still pretty cool covers though. I really like the style of these covers. can't remember. I think it's still Declan Shalvey who did these covers, or at least some of them. Really neat ideas. This one's also pretty cool. Just a nice more graphic design cover. And then with issue 17, this series basically wrapped up. We did get one annual on this series, which came out around Halloween, so that's why these are Halloween themed covers. Actually, I don't have the regular cover because it was pretty boring, just a scarecrow, and so I opted for both variant covers. So after the 2016 Becky Cloonan run, they relaunched Punisher again. This time Matthew Rosenberg was the writer on the new series. And they relaunched it under their Marvel Legacy banner, where they put the classic numbering back on a few books. Not only the Punisher, but several books in the Marvel Universe. I think almost everything that was... basically legacy characters. For some reason with Punisher they came to the conclusion that 218 should be the relevant number, which is a little bit weird because the only ongoing series that really ran for a long time was the first one, which went up to number 104. And then you're suddenly at 218, so I don't know what the idea was behind this. I mean, you're definitely not gonna get back the people who stopped buying your books because of constant relaunches. But yeah, whatever. So they went with 218, and this is basically the Punisher War Machine storyline, where he gets the War Machine armor after James Rhodes had passed away in what was it called, Secret Empire. And within Secret Empire, Punisher was also a part of Hydra, because he basically followed Cap. And yeah, pretty stupid storyline. I have to admit, I've never really read Secret Empire, but yeah, whatever. So this is basically Punisher's revenge on Hydra. So here we have the first issue, regular cover. Then we have this, I mean, I really like it, this lenticular cover, where we on one side have Punisher in the War Machine armor, and on the other side we have the original first cover appearance of the War Machine armor, which was Iron Man 282. Then I've also got the headshot incentive of this 218. I think this was 1 in 10. Then we have number 219, and as you can see, all very nice Clayton Crane covers. And I actually really enjoyed this run. I thought this was a cool idea. Some really nice covers here. This one's really cool. Here he goes up against a few minor Avengers. Nice Baron Zemo cover. Then Black Widow and the Punisher, and the final True Legacy issue, where he went up against Iron Man. Then they relaunched Punisher again, but with the same writer, Matthew Rosenberg, who's pretty good in my opinion. I also really enjoyed this run. So here's the number 1, number 2, number 3 with a Daredevil crossover, and also really cool covers again. Don't know the artist right off the bat now, but yeah. So the Stan Lee tribute covers, which they did for 2 months on almost all the Marvel books. And again, this continues Punisher's war against Hydra, or his revenge against Hydra, I guess you could say. Interesting Jigsaw cover, another Baron Zemo cover. Then the, I don't know what they called these Virgin variants. I forgot it, but they did a bunch of them for several series. So this is the one for Punisher number 11. Really nice cover. Really like it. Issue number 12. Issue number 13 with Kingpin. And they basically tried to set up Vigil again, but it didn't stick because this series didn't run that long. Nice crossover with Night Thrasher, Ghost Rider, Black Widow and Moon Knight. And the final issue of Matthew Rosenberg's run. And I've also got the Mary Jane variant for this. Then after the conclusion of this series, they went ahead with a few short miniseries. So this is the War of the Realms Punisher crossover miniseries, 3 issues, written by Gary Duggan with artwork by Juan Ferreira. And this was actually pretty good. I was expecting it to be pretty bad because usually these big time crossover event miniseries usually are not very good. And I didn't like some of Duggan's work on Deadpool, for example. But in this case, I felt it worked. And then I also put in the, I think this came out in 2020, the Acts of Evil annual. And this is basically a throwback to the Acts of Vengeance. I don't know, was it annuals? No, I don't think. It was stuff that went on in all of the regular series, where basically villains crossed over to fight different heroes. And in this one, obviously, as we can see, Punisher goes up against the Brood Queen. And yeah, I did not really like it. I felt this was pretty bad, but I'm gonna leave it away. And then from the War of the Realms miniseries, they spawned this Punisher Kill Krew series, where basically Punisher goes through different realms and hunts some of the monsters that wreaked havoc in the War of the Realms storyline on Earth. And yeah, punished them. This was also really fun. It's a bit unusual for Punisher, and sometimes this stuff doesn't work, like Franken-Castle or the Angelic Punisher. But in this case, it really worked for me, so I really enjoyed this one. And yeah, this concluded with issue 5. And now we get to the final Punisher series, which is the current series that's ongoing. I've only read the first issue, but I really liked that. So Punisher becomes the executioner for the Hand. Sorry, spoilers, but I guess if you haven't read it until now. And this is actually the second printing of issue 1. That's the only issue I have from this series. I need to pick up the rest because I did really like it. And Jason Aaron did a good Punisher Max run. So he's a good writer. So I'm looking forward to picking these up. I just feel like this stuff is getting too expensive. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd pick it up at chance. So that's basically it for this Punisher collection video. I think next up's gonna be miniseries, one-shots and crossovers and stuff like that. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe till next time. Bye bye.